Okay, welcome to the channel, viewers. I'm going to do this one straight off the cuff. Narcissistic husband signs. Waking up to the reality that you have married a narcissistic man. Let's see what Dr. Kim Sage, licensed psychologist with 322,000 subscribers, has to say about narcissistic husbands.
And nowhere is this more true than if you were raised by a borderline or narcissistic parent or parents with these traits. You are often more inclined to choose partners who are similar. And this is definitely true for many people, I believe, who have chosen and wound up with narcissistic husbands.
I don't fully agree with that. There is some element of truth to that, but it's only statistics. That's not absolutely true. Opposites attract sometimes. We are often flee from the situations that we've grown up in and go the opposite way. That is not a solid statement, I don't think.
The problem is all of these videos on narcissism and all these things, which are amazing, by the way, we don't often see.
No, not all of them are. A lot of them are misleading. A lot of them have nothing to do with narcissism. They're just about sinfulness and the wrong things that people do to you. Narcissism's a whole different ballgame to that.
Behaviors in the beginning. A, they don't often display them as strongly. B, we don't see them because they often feel so recognizable.
No. See, in the beginning you don't see them because there's a fantasy building, a dual fantasy that a relationship can work. And so when you're ignoring the signs in the love bomb phase, you're creating a fantasy. You're believing that what possibly might not work will work. You're in a dual fantasy with that person. Now, whatever their fantasy is, possibly that a relationship that won't work will work. These are signs of narcissism. So the love bomb stage usually is co-mutual. But what happens is the one that devalues the other person the most usually comes up with the conclusion that the person that they now dislike, that they entered into a relationship with the fantasy that it was going to work, is the narcissist. But that's not necessarily true. A lot of these people that are declaring the opposite partner as being a cruel narcissist, this, that, and all the other, really are doing that in a betrayal of the fantasy, the love bomb phase. They're just as guilty. And she's more or less saying, yeah, you go in rushing into a relationship and you can't see the red flags. You are blinded by your desires and lusts to make this thing work. You're blinded by your fantasy.
So like home, we are so used to being caretakers. If we had parents with certain disorders or traits or characteristics, that when we spot a partner who feels like home, sometimes that home is like the toxic home. It is like the toxic wound of love. And
now you tell me what that's got to do with narcissism.
And we get lured in by the charm and all of those things that narcissists especially are so great at. And we wake up one day realizing that we hate them.
Right, so hang on a sec. Let's follow this, viewers, sensibly. The man that coined the word narcissism tells you that there's 4 things in the journey of the way in which a narcissist works. So part of the main principle, as I mentioned before, is a dual fantasy. And that dual fantasy is usually based in the love bomb phase, where people are mirroring one another with the projection that this is going to be love for life. Right? So the reality's not there, and that's why the things that we don't like don't get seen. So you've got the love bomb phase, you've got the journey within itself just after that, you've got then reality, which is the devalue phase, when reality light starts coming on, and then you've got the discard or reverse discard, depending on who pulls the pin first, and it could be just a shit test to cause a trauma bond with every intention that they know you'll come back. But that doesn't always happen. And then of course there's the Hoover or reverse Hoover. A lot of this stuff that these people make up really don't have their roots in narcissism, but narcissism's now a generalized word for sinful things and bad things. Anything bad has to be connected to narcissism. Narcissism's a more attractive word than sin. It's a much more fascinating word than sin. You can attach more to it unless you're scrutinized. And let's see what else this lady's got to say.
Hate ourselves for being with them. We don't know who we are. We've relinquished our power, our individuality, our hearts, our minds, our souls, and we feel trapped oftentimes.
Now, whose fault's that? Let's get this in its right perspective. You've gone into a dating or whatever relationship with every intention and every expectation that it is going to work. So in an elementary way, you've blinded yourself, be it male or female or both. And you're now in the love bomb phase building out of a fantasy that this is going to be Prince Charming, or this is going to be Princess Snow White or Cinderella or whatever it is. And therefore the warning signs are allowed to go over the head. Right, now this is immaturity, isn't it? It's being led by desires and lusts, okay? Because lust is the ultimate goal, to fulfill your lusts or your need for intimate supply. And it's how we navigate that, okay? So we can say that we are in a relationship with someone we now hate, which is what she said. But just because we've grown to hate the person we're in a relationship with or married to, number one, doesn't mean we have to stay there. Okay? If you choose to stay there, that's on you.
Because it's not easy to leave a narcissist, especially if you have children. In fact, you never really truly do leave them in some regards, because
it's not easy to leave anybody. And I think the worse the situation is, the easier it is to leave, depending on your mentality. Now, sometimes these people put themselves into relationships with toxic people because the toxicity keeps them from being bored. Okay, some people are attracted to toxicity. But when the fad wears off, right, you're beginning to devalue the relationship because now your attitude's starting to change. Is it fair to blame somebody that was not really what you wanted from the start and probably deteriorated along with your deterioration relative to the relationship keeping the fire burning? Is it fair to blame them? You might say, well, I checked myself out, I ticked all the boxes, blah, blah, blah. A narcissist can be still a faithful person, a person that's still producing sex, a person that's still intimate and wants to spend time with you, but there'll be these unbearable voids, absences, this separation that can't be filled. And all these things about sin and nastiness and this, that and the other, these are all fruits of most relationships that go down the tubes. They're not necessarily, all I'm trying to say is, a lot of this isn't narcissism, a lot of this. A lot of it's they've lost attraction, they've got other interests. We come into all this with the perception that all relationships are supposed to last a lifetime, but the statistics will tell you and the facts will tell you and probably life will tell you the odds are against you for that to happen.
Of the attachment with your children. And I often wonder what it would be like if we could recognize the signs before. I always say I wish I'd had someone in therapy, which all my clients did, who was asking us before our marriages, are you sure this is a good fit? What things make you happy? Where are the issues? Oftentimes we are, even if we're told those things, we don't pay attention. But that's a different video on recognizing the signs in dating. But today's video is all about what it's like to wake up and realize you're married to a narcissist and what the signs are in a man, all right? So before I get started, my name is Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I hope you will subscribe and hit that little bell, click the bell, and that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. And please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, hopefully. And also, please feel free to engage in the comments and let me know what else you want to know more about, what you think I forgot,
Come
and any other
on.
things you want to share with your own narcissistic stories, because the truth is, when you hear one person's story, it helps you not feel so alone, and it validates your story and your wound. So let's get started. I have about 22 signs I'm going to quickly go through. I know that's a lot of signs, but let's be honest, narcissists are a lot in themselves, all right? So the first sign is that sex is highly conditional, and as a result, it is seen as an extension of his worthiness, of your worthiness, and there can be a lot of poutiness and demands. If he doesn't get sex the way he wants with a frequency, it doesn't matter if it's a rational amount of time or irrational amount of time, he sees it as an extension of his value and his need to dominate and to be seen. And if he
No, I want to correct her on this. There's incompatibilities in relationships relative to sex, and these incompatibilities don't surface until after the honeymoon phase. And there'll be all sorts of negotiations and navigations around how much sex is good enough, when to have it, whether or not they don't like it. And again, women usually are the less wanton of sex. Not always, but usually. Okay? So this happens in all relationships. This isn't specifically narcissistic. This could have so many different things relative to it. So to jump to the conclusion that there's sexual issues in a relationship's narcissism, or that somebody's standing over you for sex, that person could just simply have a higher sex drive than you, and it needs to be negotiated. And if it can't be, as far as I'm concerned, the best thing for you to do is leave and find someone that suits you sexually. It's not necessarily narcissism. I've been in relationships where the woman's wanted more sex than me. I've tried to live up to that and done a pretty good job, and then they've lost interest anyway. They usually narcissize themselves out of it, because narcissism isn't necessarily the personality disorder specifically. It's the devaluation of a situation that originally was rated highly, for whatever reason that might be. As soon as somebody starts playing up in a relationship and it don't suit you and it can't be negotiated, you leave. You simply leave. You don't stay in it, narcissizing it, complaining and whinging and carrying on, knowing that it ain't going to change. Right? Because that makes you become a narcissist yourself, because everything's devalued. I've seen these whinging women in relationships with men that move on without them later and go on to find somebody that sees them differently, and it all works out. I've experienced this myself. But to simply sit there and say that because there's incompatibilities in sexual wantedness is narcissism, to me that's misleading. That's absolutely misleading. Okay? Yeah, there are narcissists that want no sex on the one hand and a lot of sex on the other. But to say incompatibility in sexuality is narcissism or a sign of narcissism, really, what are we looking for here? Just a way of enthroning this word, this personality disorder? No.
he doesn't get it, he'll often be pouty, like I said before, and irritable and angry and punishing. And many women will describe just giving in to avoid dealing with that. But
no,
if you
so that's sulkiness, isn't it? That's immaturity. Okay. On the other hand, narcissists can be pretty understanding with all this as well. Right? So in a lot of ways, these are people that are completely in incompatible relationships. And rather than leaving, they'll devalue the whole thing and conclude that the person that they're with is a narcissist. How many times do we hear it and see it?
feels very much like, I only love you when you're giving me the sex that I want. And that feels really, really bad.
Well, okay, if that's you, right, and you can comment, come on, put it in the comments, viewers. If that's you, what are you in the relationship for? Honestly, if that's you and you're getting too much sex or not enough, right, and it ain't going to change, then what are you doing in the relationship? What are you trying to prove? Next.
issue is that with narcissistic men, that when children arrive, they don't do a very good job of acclimating. Now, the research shows that most families, even without narcissism, really struggle. Most marriages really struggle when we have new babies because the shift becomes on the baby and the mother often, or the other partner, and there's a neglect sometimes that can be felt as opposed to like a maturing into our family is expanding and this is just how it works. I have to move myself to the back burner sometimes. Not with a narcissist. A narcissist is a direct threat to their value. And so you can see this like, don't forget about me, I'm important too, or you love that baby more than me. It's like, what? Yeah.
Okay, now I've seen these situations, right? Let's just square this off a bit. Okay, on the one hand, she's right. There are selfish people that want to put themselves intimately or affectionately before the child relative to the wife, but what are we talking about? Getting our nappies changed, or you're not feeding me my bottle on time? What are we talking about here? Because I've seen mothers put the babies in between themselves and the husband in bed at night. I've seen women use the baby as a shield from the husband, right? This woman's got to be careful not to be encouraging all this as well. You'll see that there is over-attention towards the baby as a means of over-parenting. There's no balance, there's no boundaries. The baby becomes the whole world of the woman. What's the husband supposed to do? The next thing she gets a phone call, I've met somebody else, or I'm having an affair because you've neglected me. She'll just turn around and say, well, I was concentrating on the baby, but was it all in order? A lot of the time, no. I've seen children ruin marriages because the children are sleeping in the bed.
That can be really difficult to deal with and very also conditional and or punishment around how dare you abandon me for the baby. I'm going to go do my own thing, be with my friends, pursue my hobbies, have an affair, like whatever they could justify.
Right.
And
so the point is, that does happen. This is the point. It's no point her sitting here saying that never happens, because it happens a lot, right? A hell of a lot. And men leave. Men get despondent and broken and leave. Sometimes the woman has the baby and she's got what she wanted and that's it. All right? She'll drive the husband around the bend until he goes.
let's just say this, if a narcissistic man is not already cheating on you, when a baby arrives and there is no longer the focus on them with intimacy, this is often a perfect time for them to start. And it gives them great justification for why they might as well take care of their own needs, because you know what, you're not doing it, so why can't I find it somewhere else?
Wow, that just sounds like selfishness to me. Why is that narcissism? Can somebody explain to me why she is diagnosing a frustrated husband, selfish husband, right, that this woman probably shouldn't be married to and has now had a child to? Why is that narcissism? That's wanting your cake and eat it too. Yeah, okay. The woman's tied up with the baby. Yeah, okay, as long as that's in order and legit. Okay, yeah, we can work with that. But if the man's just for the sake of it and without being patient towards a woman, just saying, well, I'm going to go find somebody else, well, he needs to go and not come back. You don't put up with that as a woman. Okay? But if you want to label that narcissism, you go right ahead, but it doesn't seem like it's got anything to do with a fantasy to me. The narcissism's shifted to another person. He started a fantasy with the new girlfriend. If he's moved off, you're out. And so if you welcome him back or stay, that's on you.
It will be done in secret oftentimes, but it will often be done. The next one is a little less obvious, which is sometimes that narcissists are described as jealous, but oftentimes they actually are not jealous in the beginning or ever. They have this sort of, why would I be jealous? Like, you can't find better than me. And that seems confusing because in the beginning it's like, I'm so confident and so secure. I trust in us. You can kind of feel that. But the truth is, he's just so narcissistic, he doesn't actually think you'll actually leave him, which becomes a problem when you do. The next one is the whole.
Okay, so people don't leave someone for no reason. Okay, a lot of women are leaving their husbands, right? You just think about what she just said. They become jealous after you leave. Well, it depends why you leave. Was it legit? Were you just being hypergamous? Did you just leave because you had enough, which is fine. But I don't think that's in many ways going to make the person jealous. It's going to aggravate them more than anything else. A lot of the times, when women just decide they're going to leave, you couldn't be bothered. To be honest, you couldn't be bothered. I was never jealous myself. I don't know if I'm a narcissist, or you can make your mind up from my videos. You decide yourself. I don't really care. I know what my lifestyle's like and how I behave and treat people. But when my first wife left, I'd gotten to the point when she finally left where it was very disruptive and upsetting, and she had no regard for the children or anything like that. And apparently I was the problem. Which is, she's perfectly entitled to her opinion. But the damage that she did and the trouble that she caused to those children, 5 children, was irreparable. Okay, so as time went on, we found out who the problem was, and it wasn't me. She went on to have 3 more children to another man, so she had 8 children altogether. What was the problem? That never worked out. Now she lives on her own in housing commission. So you've got to be careful. When somebody leaves, right, because they've had enough of you, they've lost attraction, they've become bored, you're not good enough anymore, you've treated them badly, that's not necessarily narcissism. And if that person gets upset about it all, that's not narcissism either. These are all the consequences of relationships. Really, when you think about it, if the narcissist, as you want to call these people, are not behaving correctly, and you've done everything you can to try and fix it, and so now you've devalued that person yourself, which makes you a narcissist, whether you're a victim or not, the relationship has to end, because both people are now narcissizing the situation. What a lot of these psychologists and all the rest of it, which are great, usually don't think of, is when somebody's devaluing another person and they're staying in that relationship, or they've left and they're still devaluing that person, that's narcissism. Because devaluation in a bond, in a relationship, is the second great element of narcissism, whether it's justified or not. And this is where we lack resolve, right? This is where the healing needs to start. Otherwise, everybody's just a narcissist.
Hallmark of our narcissism, which is they're overly sensitive to feedback or criticism, and everything feels like criticism.
Because Professor Sam Vaknin, who coined the word narcissism, is well and truly open to feedback and all the rest of it. As a matter of fact, a lot of narcissists are willing to learn. It's just a matter of what they do with that learning. Let's go one step further, because a lot of people could say that, what was that murderer's name, that real bad one, that American guy? Really bad. He was a law student, and he even did his own representation against all those murders. I can't remember his name offhand. I'll try and find it. Hang on. Ted Bundy. Now, he was a serial killer, right? Which is way up the ladder from a narcissist. But he was willing to learn. He was a caring man if he wasn't killing anybody. So was Hitler. Hitler was a very friendly person if you were in his inner circle and you didn't do anything wrong by him. But if you wronged him, it was lights out. So again, these traits, and in this case, the trait of, what'd she say?
Confident and so secure. I trust in us. You can kind of feel that. But the truth is, he's just so narcissistic, he doesn't actually think you'll actually leave him, which becomes a problem when you do. The next one is...
Oh, that was about jealousy.
Is on the hallmark of our narcissism, which is they're overly sensitive to feedback or criticism.
No, I disagree with that. Now, I've been in counselling sessions where the feedback is worthy of an argument, as it were, to try and get to the bottom of it. It's had to marinate, it's had to manifest, and sometimes neither person likes the feedback. And if somebody doesn't like feedback, what's another word for that besides narcissism? Put it in the comments. What's another word for somebody that doesn't like criticism or feedback besides narcissism? Somebody that doesn't want to grow, right? That's a stunted person, a stubborn person, maybe arrogant. All these things then have to be associated with narcissism. Okay, if somebody's a homosexual and they don't want to face that, and there's other ways of saying it, well then that has to be associated with narcissism, doesn't it? So narcissism can be labelled to anything that's not positively objective to the person that doesn't want to hear it. The alphabet people don't want to hear specifics about how conservative people see them. Right? They don't want to hear that. So that makes that narcissistic, doesn't it? So see, you can go down the rabbit hole with all this. I know narcissists, I know psychological, very dangerous people that'll take feedback. They'll sit there and listen to it, they'll digest it. But what they manifest after that's completely up to them.
And everything feels like criticism or feedback. And what happens is, even if they are able to hear you, they still feel like it's criticism. Sorry, there's some hair floating around. They still feel like it's criticism. And at the end of the day, they're just going to dismiss whatever you say anyway, because it doesn't matter and it's not even relevant. Next one is
so with what she's saying and what I'm saying in conjunction with it, or opposing to it, or complementing it, does that mean I'm a narcissist? Put it in the comments.
Seem highly ethical and moral, but really this is sort of an act. And so they'll be judging other people, and I can't believe they did that, and yet they will turn around and do it themselves. And
okay, so that's oh dear. It's gone so far away from what narcissism is. Oh my God.
So there often can be this confusing nature in the beginning when you're getting lured in. Oh, they're so, stuck to their morals and all that. No, it's just not serving their purpose right now. And so they'll be flipping that when it serves them.
That's part of the dual fantasy at the start. And and that person will have their side of the fantasy as well. That's how a relationship begins, with the purpose and the, as I said before, expectation that this is going to turn into a lifelong love affair. But that's not necessarily so. And this is where the maturity and the relationship skills of the individuals have to be played out. Okay, just because a relationship doesn't work as well as what we would have liked it to, doesn't mean it's about narcissism.
Next one is no boundaries. Now this is a very classic one with the NPD and BPD, and this involves
okay, so here's another contradiction about no boundaries, and then on the other hand, control. Okay, so if on the one hand, the narcissist has no boundaries, and then on the other hand, all they want to do is control, that leaves nothing. What's in between? Okay, because if you're going from control to no boundaries back to control to no boundaries, then you're dealing with an absolute what? Definitely not somebody that you want to be with.
From eating off your plate, to not wearing clothes appropriately, to walking around naked, to being disrespectful in terms of what you ask them to respect in your own boundaries. It can be inappropriate touching, sexual comments, even if you're split, it doesn't matter. They have no problem disregarding your boundaries. The next sign is arrogance and entitlement.
Well, that's one side of it. That's one side of it. Okay, because on the other side, they do like order. They can, want everything kept in order and kept right. Okay.
It's a classic NPD sign, right? It goes with that attempt to hide that low self-esteem, which is the hallmark inside of a narcissist. But it's this very, sort of confident, charming way in the beginning. It looks like, wow, this guy is like really strong and put together. He believes in himself. He's so powerful. And often narcissistic men are very powerful. They often do well in life because they have this sort of inflated sense of self that allows them to take risks, put themselves out there, and kind of like BS everyone else around them.
So hang on, is that narcissism? Business skill and business, navigating your business correctly, if it's moral and what now she's bringing in the word BS. In business, if you're into BS, you don't get far. no matter how crafty or clever you think you are.
And it can be really intoxicating in the beginning, but it's shallow inside, right? But the initial part is this arrogance and entitlement. The next one is that most narcissistic men are very good at control, and they love to control, and they do it so well that sometimes you'll actually think it was your idea, right? They have this.
So I'm going to wrap it up on this point. I'm not going to go any further with this because we've gone from no boundaries to control, right? We've gone from no boundaries to control. So anything to do with anything wrong or bad is going to be equated to narcissism. Oh, guys, look, I'm just going to get off here. I really, it's so far away from the devaluation and the discard. Anything to do with sin, this is what I've noticed. Anything to do with sinfulness, you can weave narcissism into it. No. Call sin sin. Get out of the relationship if that's what it is. Don't go back. Don't call back. Sort out arrangements with the children. Sort your business out. Move on. And get on with your life. Don't just sit there and say it's, narcissism and this, narcissism that. Everybody's tired of it. People are making millions out of it. Give it a miss. Just call sin sin. Move on. Don't go back. Keep well. Keep safe. Find your identity. You've lost it in your own fantasy. You're just as much guilty as what they are for being in it. Get out. Walk away. Show some personal maturity and acumen. And don't go back.